Welcome to the Inflection podcast, where we explore the pivotal moments that have shaped us into who we are today. I am your host, Anebi, and I can't wait to dive into these moments with you. Let's get it. Excited for yet another episode of the Inflection podcast. I have here with me today Ruchi, one of the co-founders of Maple Billing, an all-in-one revenue management suite for different kinds of sales motions, whatever that may be. Thank you, Ruchi, for jumping on with us today.
Thanks for having me, Anebi. It's been great to just get to know you and collaborate with you so far. So really excited to be on the podcast today.
Right back at ya. Um, when we met, I was very intrigued by the premise of what you're building with Maple Billing. And so let's peel back the layers a little bit. Why Maple?
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of backstory and inspiration that sort of led into building this platform. Just for context, I had been at Dropbox for a very long time as an engineering leader across different parts of the business. And one of the things that I had observed was like billing and pricing and packaging management across several sales motions was so fragmented. And it's amazing how such a basic requirement for any SaaS business is so massively fragmented in today's
Mhm.
world, regardless of all the different sales motions that you may have. So, a lot of the inspiration for building a unified management suite has come from the need of seeing the fragmentation across the board.
That is awesome. How does your solution tie that all together? Is it via APIs and then you tie it together in a simplified portal product?
Yeah, a lot of the value add comes from the unified view of your world. SaaS products today, when they start out, or even just even more mature companies today, they are constantly experimenting with different sales motions. They may have a self-serve, like product-led growth motion. They have sales-led motions, or their founders are doing founder-led sales. There's just so many avenues in which companies today are looking to grow. And it's amazing how there's only a single tool for each one of these things that doesn't talk well to each other. But as you work with Maple, it's designed to be your partner as you're going through that iteration and experimentation of what your sales motion is, and lets you view how your business is doing across the board, regardless of all of that iteration.
Amazing. That's a huge value prop right there. Because
Yeah.
even for me, I totally suffered from the tool creep. You have so many different tools for different things. And again, if you're speaking just about sales itself, again, so many different tools. Unified one that scales with
Yeah.
you as you experiment, I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. No, that's definitely been one of our callings for sure.
It's amazing. So your background is as an engineer, right?
Yeah.
Software engineer. How has that looked like transitioning from hardcore engineer building solutions to now scaling it up to building a business?
Yeah, no, it's been quite the journey. And I think a lot of the basics of being an engineer amazingly translate in terms of detail orientedness across the board, but also I've seen sort of the downsides of being an engineer and its effect on trying to be a founder and a leader across the board. I'd say just in terms of the story, I would say having grown up in Toronto and going to Waterloo, University of Waterloo is like an amazing computer engineering program. Was definitely lucky to be part of that. And then graduate, go to Stanford, and then be part of the startup ecosystem in Silicon Valley. That's definitely a very, very gifted path to have. And a lot of those stages have formed a lot of my background in being a great engineer, learning a lot of the ropes of where to be product oriented, where to be detail oriented, where to build a perfect system and where not to, where there's value in iteration and growth. A lot of that has definitely shaped my background in terms of being product oriented and then leading that into the combination of being a product and engineering leader for the business that I have today. Yeah.
That's cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. Are they along the way, either working as an engineer and now working in a new company, are there leadership anecdotes that you have observed that serve you now that you still go back to or that you've incorporated?
Yeah, no, absolutely. As part of, I would say the majority of my engineering career growth has been at Dropbox, and I've had definitely the luxury of working with some of the really great leaders, not just on the engineering ability or technical prowess. It's definitely been just really great leaders to look up to. There's just so many basics of leadership that people tend to get wrong or don't focus on, but it's amazing how a lot of the basics of being a leader are actually not really engineering associated at all. And it's all about exploring and sharing vulnerability. I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned as a leader is that the way to earn trust with the team is to not show that you don't make any mistakes and that you're all perfect. It's
Yeah.
about really exposing the fact that you're human too, and you're willing to learn, and that you're not an expert at everything. And I think that's what really makes people gravitate towards you and look up to you. So that's something I feel like has really shaped my leadership journey about exposing that vulnerability. And there's always a sort of difficult judgment call that you're making, especially as a woman leader, of where to show weakness and where not to. But I feel like I've definitely experimented and tried with different mechanisms to see what's worked. And I believe a lot of the people I've worked with have found that valuable.
That's cool. And I really resonate with that too. Like a lot of the great leaders I have worked with were skilled at building trust. But there's something you've probably heard like moving at the speed of trust.
Yep.
Because many times startups and maybe other companies, you want to move fast to break stuff. But if you're moving fast, taking people along and they trust you through that process, then you're a maverick and then sometimes you leave a trail of bodies. So being careful there. Another thing I've heard and have seen in action is trust by default. So some leaders, and I think it's something that separates great leaders from just people managers or bosses, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's some who inherently don't trust you. I don't trust you. Prove
Mm.
me wrong.
Yeah.
So the employees and colleagues are always working to earn that trust.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you flip that slightly and it's, I trust you, prove me right.
Yeah.
Now you might have the occasional person in that it's
Yeah.
okay. We need to put you on a performance improvement plan or
Yeah.
this doesn't isn't working. But
Yeah.
when you move forward with I trust you, I
Yeah.
really want to trust you, prove me right, then it's a positive posture and people don't feel like they're working so hard to just earn your trust, right? So that's something key I have seen.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, that 100% resonates. I think it's easy to start off from a position of distrust, but when you flip that model, it's essentially managing exceptions to the rule versus actually constantly being vigilant and micromanaging for
Yeah.
someone's career growth. So I definitely resonate with that point as well, is just trust by default and then wait to handle an exception versus yeah.
Versus y'all exception.
I hope there aren't any, but when they are, you that's when you yeah.
Yeah, I love that. What's been as you went from okay, Dropbox to start bigger corps and whatnot, do you see adjustments right in the levers? I know your own smaller, way smaller startup. The
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, it's definitely been a major transition for sure. I think from running a 200 people engineering organization to now being the person who is the puck stops with us, right? Like it's three
yeah,
co-founders and a lot of that responsibility, there's no delegation to be had just yet. So it's all about being proactive. It's all about being available. It's all about being the person who responds to it all. So
Yeah.
it's definitely been a good transition. I think it's a lot of going back to basics, to be honest. I would say after having run a big org, going back to writing code I was nervous, but then I think when I just started back, it felt like riding a bike. It felt like I've done this before. And so it's one of those things that came back naturally. And I just got back into the zone where I began to just remember why I really enjoyed it in the first place. And so that was really inspiring in the first few days, first early days of the company, where it was all about building and iterating with customers and getting feedback and understanding the problem space more. But definitely the adjustment has been about going back to the roots, going back to basics, and also just understanding that there's a deeper relationship with customers that I never used to have, even though I was at a big company like Dropbox.
Yeah.
So I think it's just good to have that really high touch point interactions with customers today.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Let's see. This is a fun one I like to ask. Are there things you would do differently
Yeah.
when you start yeah, fresh with maple billing? Are there some things at the beginning that you just didn't know? And they're like, yeah, I wouldn't do that again. I did that differently.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always stuff you'd go back and rewrite. And I think a lot of the things that I would want to change is that all three of us who are co-founders of the company, we're all product and engineering backgrounds. And it's extremely easy for us to just gravitate to building the product, right? Even though we love talking to customers, we spend every single day chatting and interacting with our customers. It's one of those things that occurs to us so naturally that we always gravitate towards doing that. I
Yeah.
think one of the things I would definitely change is like beginning to work on our go to market fundamentals earlier. And it's not to say that early companies know what they're doing from a go to market perspective from day one, but I think I have a whole new appreciation for the skill that it takes, just having not trodden that path before. So
Yeah.
I think the earlier I would have built some leverage and understanding of that space, I think that would have been more valuable in our journey so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And along those lines, have there been great resources that you found invaluable to your growth so far that
Yeah.
you would recommend?
Yeah, no, for sure. There's definitely been a lot of first principles learning across go to market things. I tried reading a few things, but I wouldn't say I have a particular favorite. But I think more than anything, conversations with people who have done it and have done it in the past, that has been the most invaluable resource. So
Wow.
I think it's about seeing a lot of the theory being put into action through anecdotes of instances where people have applied that knowledge that's been far more valuable. And it's always easy to claim that there's a playbook, but there never really is. Like you own the trajectory of your company. There's always going to be something that is a snowflake experience or unique experience for the state you're in the company. And so the
Yeah.
thing that like I gravitate towards learning is like, okay, given a scenario, how did you react to the problem space? And it's really about listening to more and more of those anecdotes that's sort of forming my set of opinions around this
Yeah.
space. Yeah, it's easy to just point to book, but I feel like it's never really just that.
Yeah, I like what you say there because it's very contextual.
Yeah.
Where a lot of see, even a startup that's very similar space as you, there's so many variables: the strength of the founders, the skill sets they bring, the experiences they've had, the build, all of that. That if any of that is a little different, it changes the whole thing. So yeah, 100% resonate with that. It's
Yeah,
very,
yeah.
very
Very concrete example is that whether do you go sales led or do you go product led in terms of growth? And it's just, again, so contextual to what you're building. You can always find that motion work for anyone. In fact, even resellers, people are amazed that resellers work for startups. And it's just one of those things that in the moment, the lever that works for your company, there's no written playbook.
And
Do
it
it.
might change.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we try to support is as a founder, you're going through all of these motions of learning and you might find some of your most valuable customers on in a motion that you don't maybe decide to sustain for the longer time of your business, but you don't there's no world in which you want to lose customers. So
Yeah,
it's really about supporting that iteration that the platform's all about. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, what would you say to budding entrepreneurs or startup founders, leaders, working stuff like from your own experiences so far, maybe what you've observed? What are a few things tips you would give to them?
Yeah. I think a lot of points that I would say is I think being a founder is really about leaving your ego at the door. I think as having built a leadership background far into being a career oriented person in the tech space, it's easy to form opinions. It's easy to form a lot of experience based opinions. It's easy to want to delegate. But I think a lot about being a founder is about really leaving a lot of those opinions and delegation at the door because it's all you. You're the one who holds all the responsibility and it's not, and ultimately your product, your offering has to serve the customer wins, right? And
Yeah,
so no vision that you have or your sort of opinion of the product matters if it doesn't serve the customer well. And that requires a lot of humility and bending over backwards to make sure your customers value what you're building. So I think one of the biggest things that has been extremely humbling is that entire experience is that ultimately you want to build something that your customers want and need, not
yeah,
what you have an opinion and a vision of. Um, at least on the onset. Certainly, as you've
yeah.
built a lot of depth and understanding of where customers are deriving value, this is not to say you shouldn't have a mission and vision for your company,
Mhm.
but I think
Yeah,
early days, it certainly means a lot of humility to learn and be willing to have your opinion changed about what's important.
yeah. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. So what's on the horizon for Maple, and how can folks engage with Maple Billing?
Yeah, we certainly are looking to grow and we are looking to help entrepreneurs and especially in the SaaS space go help you on that journey of iteration around how you bill your customers, what sales motions you deploy, and be able to do that without selling your soul or especially in this cost sensitive market
Yeah,
be flexible and nimble while doing that and not committing to tools that cost a lot to be able to do that. So definitely would love to hear from folks who are in that journey try to figure out how they can effectively manage different sales motions, invoice their customers in different ways and manage all of that without giving away a percentage of their growth. So
yeah.
that's definitely
Fan-
yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you on,
Yeah.
and I'm excited to continue to follow the growth of Maple Billing.
Thanks, Anebi. It was a pleasure being on the show. Thanks.